I want to talk just a little bit more about how reselling saved me. I got one comment in my last video. Someone sent me an email and talked about how it must be easy for me. I have a husband, I have children, about the way I looked. It must be easy for me to get to this point in my life. I want to talk about that with you because my dad was not a good person. So I promise I will get back to reselling content. But so many of you seem to resonate with me in wanting to do more and change things up and mix things up at this later stage of our lives. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it was like for me growing up and how I got the resilience and the tenacity. I know it's something we all have deep inside of us. The story I'm going to tell you, compared to other people, is minimal. People have so many different things in their lives that were much harder than mine. So this pales in comparison to what others are going through, but it's my story. And I kind of felt like this morning when I decided to sit down and talk about it that think this might be my version of therapy. Instead of going to therapy, I think I'm going to talk to a bunch of strangers on the internet about what it was like growing up in my house. Later in life, I have been able to realize how all of these small intricacies shaped me into who I am. Of course, your childhood shapes you into who you are, but it built a tenacity and a fierceness in me that can be good and bad. But my story begins with a father who left my mom. I'm an only child. He left my mom in the hospital and didn't come back to get her for 7 days. That was back in the time when you didn't go home in 24 hours. My mom was tiny, tiny. I was 9 pounds, 11 and a half ounces. The doctor at that time told my dad he was having a boy. I was a girl. And when my dad found out that I was a girl, he was very, very disappointed. The doctor had to pull my dad into the room. He told my dad, "This is your daughter," and he walked out. And he treated me that way, that he didn't want me, for my entire life. I took care of my mom and myself my whole life. My mom's excuse always was he had a bad childhood. He was verbally and mentally brutal to both her and I. As I grew up, he didn't care much for the fact that I didn't allow myself to be hindered by what he said. And the, the thought, even as a little kid, the thought I always had is if he makes me feel badly, he wins. And I don't know what it was, but I just always wanted to win. I didn't grow up playing sports. My parents didn't bring me to anything that was sports related. I didn't belong to any clubs or do anything. I told you we lived in an apartment until I was in 7th grade. We got our first home then, and I got my first dog. Putting in perspective, I was in college. Um, how my dad was, they chose my birthday while I was in college to put my dog to sleep. Um, I, I don't understand how you can do that to a child. They explained to me that it was time, but you know what? And when it was time, it was time the day before my birthday, or it was time the day after. I'm sure I had done something to make him mad. They didn't really come and visit me in college. They didn't help move me in when I went to college. They were busy, I guess. I was an only child, so the support was never there. Fast forward to my 20s. I lived on my own. I had graduated in 4 years. I figured out how to do it. What I am learning now, looking back, I just had small successes. Every time I was able to figure out a problem, it turned into the confidence to figure out another problem. And I know you've all done that too. The commenters on the video were so kind and they thanked me and they wanted to try, but they're stuck and they don't know if they should try, and they were happy that they found the video. Every success that you have done, everything that you have done up until this point, you have figured it out. And you are now able to take that confidence and turn it around and teach yourself at our age how to resell. Fast forward into my 20s, early 20s, I was supposed to meet my parents for brunch at 11 o'clock on a Sunday. I was a 24-year-old girl. My dad said 11 o'clock. I lived 2 towns over from them. My dad said 11 o'clock. He called me at 9 o'clock that Sunday morning and said, I'm hungry, I'm ready to go. I said, but you told me 11. And he said, I know, but I'm hungry. And I said, but 11. And I said, I got to take a shower, back in the day when you took a shower every day. And he said, no, I want to go now. I'm going now. And he hung up the phone. 2 years. He didn't speak to me, nor did my mother. I'm a 24-year-old girl on my own. I'd met my husband during that time. My husband is a great guy. He didn't grow up like this. I don't know if he realized when he met me what kind of damaged goods he was getting. He's a good person. He took me in with all my flaws, and I kind of slowly introduced him to my family. The ironic part was 2 years had gone by. I was working in a law firm, gotten a job downtown in Minneapolis. I was working in a law firm. And after 2+ years of time, my father showed up at work and told the receptionist he's here to take me to lunch. And he did that in a public place so that I couldn't fuss. And I left my desk, and he took me to lunch, told me he had cancer. And 6 months later, he passed away. And this is going to sound harsh and cruel, but I truly believe my father passed away so that my mom and I could start to live. I know that sounds brutal. You would have to have lived in my shoes to understand how I could possibly feel that way. But my mom now is alone and thriving at that point, moved into a townhome a mile and a half from us. Fast forward again now, many years later, it's COVID. And a mile and a half from us, she's in her 80s. Now, fast forward to where we're getting to reselling. She had taken a little tumble and ended up taking her to the hospital during that time. And during that visit, they explained that her dementia was significant. And they handed me a pamphlet and told me it was time that I figure out and take her home and figure out what to do. I didn't know my mom had dementia. I knew that she was forgetful. I knew that things were difficult. I knew that it was COVID. Things were difficult for everyone. And so we did an online call with her doctor, and her doctor said, yes, Beverly, your dementia has worsened and you need to have some more care. And that became me in our home during COVID. And I was working. My husband at that point was furloughed. Back to my husband, which also shaped me in the tenacity that I have. He was dealt some really difficult cards by someone who was very close to him several years ago. Life-changing cards. And that's his story to tell. That's not my story to tell you. He'll never tell you that story. But I remember looking at him. This was a little before COVID. I remember looking at him. I remember standing in our bedroom outside of the closet door. I remember exactly where we were. And I looked at him and I said, this could end up being the best thing that's ever happened to you. It was. Back to my mom. She now has been diagnosed with dementia and needs somewhere to stay, which ends up being our home in our porch while I'm working. That situation wasn't working well, so that sweet husband of mine decided to help her. And because she only lived a mile and a half from us, he moved in with her and helped take care of her. My husband, my mom, moved with her. Right? That's a good guy. So he did help take care of her. He was just kind of comfort care in the beginning. Things did not go great for him towards the end of time before she got her COVID vaccine and we were able to move her into memory care. It was a little bit of a tough road for him at the end. He did a really fantastic job for our family. And during that time as well, our son is planning a wedding and getting married. So we had a lot going on during COVID. So that brings me back to the thing that we all have in common, and that is resilience, the ability to put one foot in front of the other under all of the circumstances that we have all been through. It's the ability we have when we have solved one problem to know that we can do it and we can solve one more. That's what we share. That's what you and I share together. Again, I'm not a life coach. I've never coached anybody in anything in my life, but that one comment sparked something in me again to share a little bit more about my story. It is something that you can do. You can do reselling later in life. You can pick up that thing that you were wondering if you should do. You should do it. What if you don't do it? You don't want to look back and think, I lost that time now forever. Now I can't do it for whatever that reason is. But we have all been through hardships. Our stories are all different. We all have a story to tell. Some people aren't using the internet as their personal therapist and telling it, but I just feel that there's a value to it. If it's happened to me, similar things have happened to you. And I'm just tough enough I'm just tough enough to not want to lose that battle. I'll just keep trying to figure it out. I think I know that came from having to be tough in a much different way. As a child, I had to learn really quickly to be tough, but I was scared. I'm still scared. I'm still unsure. I still overthink everything. I'm still a planner. I'm still a worrier. Ask my kids. I've tried really, really hard to do so much better for them. I married a much better guy than my mother married. Um, when I was moving her out of her home, she had kept all sorts of tools in her garage. And I said to her, Mom, why do you have these? You've never picked up this hammer ever. Brian has helped you do all of these things. And she said, because your dad said he would come back. And I said, what? She said, your dad told me if I got rid of any of his things, he'd come back. So my poor little mother was wondering and worried that he would come back after he passed away. That's some serious, nasty stuff. So, in that regard, I'm telling her story too. My mom did the best she could do. She made some not great choices that weren't all her fault. So, I want to tell her story too. And I want to encourage you with everyone's got a past, everyone's got a history. What we share the same is that resiliency to start doing something that might be a little scary at this stage of our life, but you're just like me and you can do it too.